we will have time for questions, okay? Thanks, everybody. Jen, go ahead.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Jen Nuncio. I am the park naturalist at Good Earth State Park. And this whole new realm of educating this way is so new to me, but I love it. It's great to see people. I still get nervous, even though I'm sitting in my living room, but I'm still nervous for all this. But I'm going to talk about a topic today that is very near and dear to my heart. I am the naturalist. I started out as a seasonal at Palisades and Big Sioux Recreation Area in the summertime. And then when Good Earth opened up, this position became available, and I am living my dream, doing what I am meant to do in a place where I have been drawn to for many years. So I'm happy to share this with you. I've got a little PowerPoint that I'll show. And then when I switch over to share my screen, I can't see all of you. So if you'll just kind of save your questions, or if you want to put them in the chat, at the end, I'll take away the presentation, and then I'll be able to see everybody, and then we can talk back and forth. Before I switch over, how many of you have been to Good Earth? You do things with kids where you raise your hand and give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but so quite a few have been there. No, thumbs down, Stacy, that's okay. But how many of you have been inside the visitor center? All of you who've been there have been to the visitor center. That's awesome. So yep, we're gonna get a virtual tour of all that, and I'll talk and explain everything about how we got there and the whole process. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Give me just a second to get it up and going. All right, so game fish and parks, that's where we start from. So the Good Earth State Park at Blood Run, that's where we're at, that's where we're going today. I'm going to give you an overview of the park first, kind of what we have, how we got there, and then at the end I'll do the history part of it, and so kind of why we are all there. So the park itself here, you can see a map. We have 650 acres. We have 9 hiking trails. We've put in the 9th one last summer. You can't see it. It's not even on this map yet, but it comes out from this trail here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it comes to the north of the park there. We needed to get some more trails out of that floodplain because we lose some of those in the springtime. And so we wanted to get some more trails in for people to explore. Over 7 miles of trail. Our park consists of forest and tall grass prairie, so we've got the best of both worlds, and then also that Big Sioux River that runs right along the border of the park. Just on the other side of that Big Sioux River, that's Iowa, so we look over and see Iowa quite often, and those are our neighbors. We don't have camping, we don't have a traditional campground like most state parks, but we do have 2 canoe campsites. So if you canoe in along that Big Sioux River and on this very northern orange trail there, we have a spot where you can pull off with your boat, spend the night, and then you have to leave via canoe or kayak. So you can spend the night at Good Earth, and then that's how you have to do it. You can't stay in the parking lot and walk down to that site. You have to canoe in and canoe back out. But it's pretty cool. We get a lot of visitors, a lot of Boy Scout groups might stay there overnight. We only have a max of 6 per site, but it does get used when it's not flooded. This is our visitor center. We just opened. We're about to celebrate our 3rd year. We opened on May 19th, 2017. Since that date, we've had over 85,000 people just visit the visitor center. So we keep track inside there. We think we're seeing about 1/3 of the people that come to the park. 2/3 are just hitting those trails directly and not even coming to the center. But it's been a great addition to Sioux Falls, and we've had great receptions from them. Inside the visitor center, it's about 12,000 square feet. We have our exhibit about the Oneota culture. We have a theater that shows a 20-minute film specifically made for the park. It depicts the history of the park and a grandfather telling his grandchildren why this place is so important. Very, very well done, and I get a kick out of it every time I watch it, and I've seen it probably over 200 times. But we also have a multi-purpose room where we host programs and meetings, and we have rentals that happen inside there too. Now, this whole presentation is pre-COVID. I'll just preference that. Right now, we don't have rentals. Right now, our visitor center is not even currently open. But I'm just going to pretend that COVID's not happening right now, and then if you have questions about how we're handling that, I will gladly answer them. But this is what we have going on within the visitor center. Outside the Good Earth, we have a covered patio, which is attached to that classroom that I mentioned. We have a picnic shelter, an amphitheater, our peace statue, we have a fire pit for the visitors, pedestal grills out in the parking lot island area, And we have interpretive signage around the building and then also along all of the trails that we have in the park. So there's lots of things to do inside or outside. That amphitheater that I mentioned, last summer, we hosted our very first concert series. The stage itself is 20 by 40. We have permanent seating for 250 people, and we believe we have an additional seating for over 1,500. We've never actually maxed out that space, so we don't know for sure, but there's a beautiful lawn that's right around that amphitheater where you can sit and bring your own chairs. We've done park programming there, special events, we've had weddings, our concert series, like I mentioned, and we also have rentals. Churches will rent it, and other groups will rent it as well. It's all set up with sound system and lighting. It's an amazing piece of property that we have out there. Our peace statue sits right outside the west entrance of the visitor center. Dan Jones of the Ponca tribe designed and built that for us. It was installed in 2018. It depicts a man and a woman coming together in marriage, a Ponca couple. They're wrapped in a bison robe, and at the base of the statue are 4 medallions, and they depict different stories of the Ponca tribe folklore. And there's also a information panel behind there where you can scan it or you can go to the website and you can hear those stories. They're fascinating. I love to tell the story that when Dan brought the statue to the park, it was laid out on a trailer, and we had prepared that pedestal there. And he went over after he got his coffee because he had driven all night, and he took a picture of that pedestal. And I said, Dan, why are you taking a picture of this pedestal? And he says, well, Jen, no one's ever going to see this again. This is kind of history. And I thought, oh, this was fascinating. Well, then he goes over to the trailer and he kissed the woman on her forehead, and he told her, "You're home." And I just got goosebumps to hear that story. And I was like, oh my gosh, he is so connected to this. And it was just a very memorable moment. And every time I see that, I think about him and his connection to this statue and what a wonderful addition it has been to the park. After the visitor center and the amphitheater and everything was installed, we were tasked to put in a playground. And we said, okay, can we have any money? And they said, no, you're out of money. You have to do this with whatever you can come up with. So Jim Henning is the park manager. He and I sat down and we designed a playscape. And we looked at some other ones around the area, the outdoor campus. And I was in New Hampshire earlier a couple years ago and saw one. And we took materials from the park and we designed different ways for kids to interact with nature, to play, to explore. There's no pre-made parts to this park, and it's just a natural place. So with the help of volunteers and our interns we had that summer, we installed this playscape. And we're going to add some more new features to it this summer. But it's just to the southwest of the visitor center. Kids explore it all the time. All ages are jumping on those stumps and exploring that and having a wonderful time. So with no money, you can put in a playground, and it's awesome. It's a great place to be. We're very well known for our trails. You can see the visitor center there. Our Vista Loop trail that you see there's limestone covered, so it's ADA accessible. One of our very highly used trails. It stays kind of above the terrain that we have, where the rest of our trails kind of go down quite a bit to the river bottom there. So there's hills you have to climb back and forth. The visitor center is at the highest point of the park, so I always tell people wherever you go, you're going to go downhill. With that top trail there, you don't have to go down as many hills, so it's not a much of an incline. Along that Vista Loop, we have 3 overlook decks that look over into the Iowa side. Like I mentioned, we look over and see Iowa every day. But our other trails are either mowed paths or they are wood chipped covered. So they're always accessible and they're great. Like I said, we have tall grass prairie. That picture there used to be corn and soybean fields. We removed those and restored that tall grass prairie. It won't be very long, another 2 or 3 weeks, we'll start to see the flowers popping up like that, and it is just fascinating. You can go deep into the woods as well. Those oak savannas are just amazing. Wildlife, every kind of bird. The Bird Club has documented over 190 species of birds in our park alone. So we've got wonderful birds, deer, turkey, coyotes, rabbits, mink. We've got all kinds of wildlife inhabiting our park there. Like I mentioned, I am the naturalist and Jim Henning is the park manager. We are the only 2 permanent staff that take care of this 650 acres. So we've gathered over 50 active volunteers. They keep us sane. Without them, we would be nothing. A lot of you are Olli, oh, you're all Olli members, but if you look at this picture here, I would say about 80% of those people in those pictures are Olli members as well. So they've joined us and they come out, they help us do the maintenance, they help us with the visitor center, they help with programming, they help with the playground and special events. I have one gentleman, he works for the fire department in Harrisburg. He loves to go on my hikes that I have, and he kind of helps corral the people. And he's always amazed. I can't believe you had 300 people come to this hike. And I'm like, I know. And if it wasn't for you, I would not be able to do this. So they come out and keep us very sane. Jim and I are very grateful for them. If you're interested, you can check us out. We have a little bit of a process to sign up. You earn a park entrance license with your first 24 hours each year. So there's a little benefit there. You get to work outdoors, sense of purpose, and we are truly a Good Earth family. All those people there, we get together and we have cookouts, we have Christmas parties, and they are just a wonderful group of people. So, future plans. So you can kind of see that, it's kind of hard to see a little bit on this map here, but you can see the outline of the park in kind of that reddish orange, the historical markers in the purple, and then down below in that kind of magenta color is the Spring Creek Golf Course. And about 5 years ago, they were looking to sell that golf course. And so it was purchased by the Wildlife Foundation and then turned back over to Parks. And in 2025, we will take over the golf course. It's about 200 acres, and we are going to remove the golf course and restore it back to those tall grass prairies like you saw in the picture, and even more forest and more trees. We will connect our trail hiking system. The park currently ends right here. I don't know if you can see that there, so it butts right up against there, and we'll just continue our hiking trails right through that Spring Creek Golf Course. There's a circle within there. There are 9 homes that will be surrounded by park, and they all know that, and they're all excited for it, and they will still have access to their homes, and they will stay there. We have an agreement with those homeowners and then the other ones in that area that we won't do any major development for an additional 10 years. So in 2035, when I will probably be retired, which is 15 more years, who knows what it'll become. We sit around the table every once in a while and talk about what can we do there. Do we want to put a campground? Do we want to make an education center? What do we want to do with that? We don't know. Nothing's been determined other than the golf course will be removed and we'll return it back to tall grass prairie and forest. So lots of I don't knows in my job. You'll learn that as we go through the presentation that I've got, but that's another one that happens quite a bit. Programming, near and dear to my heart. Last year, we hosted 259 programs with over 12,000 people attending those programs. We're seeing about 25% of our visitation are coming just out for programs, which is awesome. We do cultural programs, natural resources, hikes, field trips. We do special events, and that's what we kind of talk about our grander, bigger programs. Full moon hikes, we've had up to 300 and 400 people come to those. Father's Day is a big day for us. We have a big star party in August, and monarch tagging, and we do all kinds of big events like that. Earth Day is getting to be another big one for us, which we love. So Sioux Falls is discovering us, and people are coming out, and we think that's just fantastic. So why are we here? Why did Good Earth State Park become a park, and what is my job to do? So my job is to interpret the history that happened here. So between 1400 and 1700, about that early time, people were beginning to settle in this area. We thought at the peak in about 1600, there was about 10,000 people living in there. We're going to talk about how they were the Oneota culture, the trade, they were farmers, bison, their homes, and geoglyphs, which are kind of a new thing that we've discovered. But we call the people that lived there Oneota, and that is an archaeological term. And those people are categorized by the pottery that they made. They would take the clay from the earth, and then they would cook clam shells that they found in the river, and then they would grind those up and put that in their clay, and then when they fired it, it made the pottery much stronger. So because of that, and because they had mounds, and because of the structures of their homes and other different categorizations, that's how they decided these were Oneota. So this was the largest Oneota settlement. There were other ones in South Minnesota and also northern Iowa. The tribes that inherited Blood Run at the time were the Iowa, the Ponca, the Omaha, and the Oto. Those were the main populations of people that lived there. And since then, those people have moved down south. We'll talk about that. But they are still tribes. They are still active, and they've all helped us within the whole development and education of this park, and they are still continued people that we go back to talk to. Blood Run was a huge trading site. They traded pipestone, excuse me, bison, obsidian, different shells, tools, and a fascinating thing that they also traded were songs and dances and stories. They would travel up to pipestone to gather the pipestone, and they would bring it back to the site where they would carve it into tablets and pipes, and then that would be traded. It's been discovered that pipestone can be found all across the world, but mostly in the United States. It's very sought after by other tribes, and they found it within thousands of miles from Blood Run. You come to the exhibit, you'll see replicas of pipestone, but we do not house any actual pipestone within the center. It was advised by the tribes that we don't put it there because of how sacred it is to the people. There is a beautiful tablet that is on display at the Center for Western Studies, though, on Augustana's University, if you want to go and see that. That was found at Blood Run. People that lived there were also farmers. They grew, the Ponca tribe told me was called the Three Sisters, which was corns, beans, and squash. Every summer, we try to replicate these gardens. And I say try because the deer give us such a fit that we fight them every year. But we have mounds of dirt. And then in the center of those mounds, we plant the corn. And as the corn grows, once it's about 6 to 12 feet tall, or inches, 6 to 12 inches tall, then we will add the beans. And the beans are the pole beans, and they will grow up the corn stalks. And they also provide nitrogen for the corn, so it gives a little bit back to them. And then a few weeks later, we'll add the squash around the base of that. And then the base cover the ground. They keep the weeds out, and they keep the moisture within those mounds. And when you come in the fall, you'll see, hopefully, tall corn growing with beans climbing up there, and then squash all covering the base of the plants. It's fascinating. But again, those deer, we try everything. We don't want to spray to keep them out, but we try to put a little fence, and we try cayenne pepper. If anybody's got a great idea on how to keep deer out, let me know when we struggle with that. But it's just part of nature. What you can see in that picture there, that's one of the murals within the visitor center. At the base of the Big Sioux River there, that's where their gardens would have been. So you can kind of see there are different mounds growing, and there's a little platform. They told us it was the children's job to keep the deer and the turkeys and the animals out of there, so the children they would flail around like scarecrows, and so they would do that. Other things that they grew were sunflowers, but those were grown outside of the mounds, but they also had those. They also gathered native plants that grew in the area. Amaranth or pigweed was a big one. They're wild plums, which we still have all through the park. Canadian mints, and they harvested the acorns from the oak trees that were there. So they had to use those plants, and they were very versed in finding what they needed, and they used them for medicine, they used them for food, and they used them for other purposes as well. But they needed to know their plants in order to survive. Also in the area during that time were hundreds of thousands of bison. They roamed this area, and they were everywhere. The men's job was to hunt and kill the bison. After that, the women would process the hides and the meat and the bones, and then they would bring all that back to use. I can do a whole program on the bison. They are fascinating animals. I wish they were here. Every year I ask Jim, can we get bison for the park? And he says, no, Jim, they will end up in Sioux Falls. You just know it. But I think it would be wonderful if we had something there. So we're working on a little something to addition to the park about bison. Not a real one, but hopefully watch for more information. But you can get 900 pounds from an adult male bison, so the meat was a huge source. The bones were turned into tools and instruments. The hides were clothing, and they covered their shelters with it and made rope and string. The horns and hooves were were molded into spoons and cups, and every part of the bison was used. Nothing ever went to waste. So I just imagine that if you look out into our park, what it would look like if, a herd of bison were just walking through. They said they were so close to the village site that they could process them right there, and nothing was wasted. They could bring it right back because they were so close. They didn't have to go far. The homes of the people that lived there, if you come into the visitor center, you will see a replica of one. It's a fascinating structure to see. It has 2 frames of either willows or small branches. So there's a frame on the inside and a frame on the outside, and they believe they were insulated with bison hides. When you come into the visitor center, you'll see the one that was replicated there, and there are 20 bison hides covering all that framework there. And they think that would have been about a 120-foot long one. We have about half of it in the visitor center. It's very fascinating when you look at the map that was created of the village site. They were either about 40 to 60 feet circular, or they were 120 feet long and oval shaped. They were all 120 feet long. They had some way of measuring. I don't know what that is, but to have them all be 123 feet long was just fascinating to me. And when we were sitting with the first interaction that I had with the tribal people, I asked them, I said, people are going to ask me what this is called. What is this structure? What do I call this? And he says, it's our home. Or you can call it a lodge, whichever way you want to call it, but it's our home. So I call it a home. This is what their homes look like. They don't have, or they don't remember what there was a specific call. It's not a wiki up. They didn't call an earthen lodge. It's just their home or possibly a lodge. I thought that was just endearing to me. I just love that. But inside the homes, there would have been beds. There would have been a fire. So when you look at their structure, there would have been a hole at the top so the fires could escape. At the base of the house, they had rocks holding down the hides, and you could lift those up if it was a hot day and let the air circulate through there. But it would be very warm and very cooling just as well in the springtime. Another big I don't know, on the Iowa side, the Blood Run historical site encompasses both Iowa and South Dakota, and they thought the village sites were on the Iowa side. But there's pitted boulders, and this is what they look like. And right now you can see 2 of them on the Iowa side if you take the trail that they have on there. But there's 5 on the property. We don't know why they did this. This is Sioux quartzite. Sioux quartzite is a 7 on the hardness scale. It's very close to a diamond. It's very hard. That's why we use it in our buildings and our not our railroads, but along the roads. So how and why they pitted these boulders, we don't know. But this one here has over 450 pits on it, on all sides of the boulder, and they're all different sizes, and we don't know. I've asked everyone that I could ever think of as to why or even how. I even asked Dan Jones when he came to visit. I said, what do you think? And he was thinking, well, I could think maybe they were making the leather softer, grinding the leather. He goes, but to do that to a rock, you would destroy the leather. He says, I just don't know. And so it's fascinating, but another, I don't know. Another very interesting thing that they found, they were starting to build the visitor center in 2014. When they cleared the land away, they found earthen drawings or geoglyphs. And you can kind of see that picture there of where they cleared it off, and they mapped it out. So what it looks like is that picture there. And what happened, they discovered was they were digging trenches along the dirt, and then they would bring other soil in to fill in those trenches to make these designs. Again, I don't know why. They've dated it, and it predates the settlement that was there. This whole picture is 80 feet across. We found the geoglyphs here at Good Earth and also on the Iowa side. They're very ceremonial, they're very sacred to the people, but we don't know why. After that happened, they depicted everything, they drew it all out, then they recovered it all back up. So they are still out there in the field. It is right to the east of the visitor center. They had to move the visitor center away from that space because we would destroy them if we put the visitor center there. Redesign the visitor center, and everything got shifted back a whole extra year for development and movement. So when you are in the visitor center and you look out of the exhibit, that window that you look out, you're looking under the field, and that's where those geoglyphs are at. Fascinating things. Another, we don't know why. And I even asked the kids, what do you think the drawings are of? And scientists will tell you, archaeologists will tell you, oh, those are bison and that's a turtle. But we don't know that for sure. That's just their interpretation. So grand, fascinating things. I wish I had been there to see them, but it was before I started. But the whole process just got moved again. Great. So one of the biggest questions we always get is why the name Blood Run? Guess what? I got an answer for you. I don't know. But some of the theories that we have are the Sioux quartzite that inhabits the area, when it's wet, is dark red, and blood is very important, and the color red is a very important color to the Native Americans. They called pipestone the blood of the people. So maybe that's where that name came from, when the Sioux quartzite's wet. On the Iowa side of the National Historic Landmark, there's a creek, and that has been named Blood Run. There is another Blood Run Creek in Iowa way off on the east side, and they thought maybe when the settlers were moving, they mistakenly thought this creek was the Blood Run Creek. All kinds of theories here. And I also discovered that there was a European a family in the area called Blood, and maybe that the Blood got translated into blood. I don't know. But I do know that there is no archaeological evidence of any massacres happening there, that the Blood Run is not named because the people were all killed there or there was a big battle there. That part I do know. When we became a state park, the Native Americans thought people would think that Blood Run was a negative name, so they wanted a different name. And one of the Iowa tribal people said, well, we call the land Mayonpihi. And he says that much better than I do. And that means to make the earth good. Well, the Omaha name for it is Mayonahudu. And I said that, again, I did not say that as well as they do. But to them, that also means good earth. So that good earth was a name that we could translate into all the languages of the tribes and into English as well. So we wanted to keep both names in there. So now we are Good Earth State Park at Blood Run, because Blood Run is the name of the historical landmark that protects the area. So that's how the names came to be. A little bit of I know and a little bit of I don't know, but in my heart, it's always going to be Blood Run, but I'm glad that I like the Good Earth too. So it's a best of both. So in about 1700, a French explorer came through and told everybody about this area and the big trade and all the people that were living in there. And he stayed some time and he did some trading and he lived among the people for a bit. And then he left, and then he came back in 1417. And when he came back in 1417, the whole area was completely vacant. There was nobody here, there was no settlement, and it was just an empty place. But there were lots and lots of artifacts. Why the people left? Again, I'm going to tell you I don't know for sure, but we have some ideas. They had been there for over 400 years. They lived the same kind of lifestyle, which I think is fascinating when you think about where we were 400 years ago. But maybe they had depleted the resources in the area. That could have been a thing. The European settlers were moving in this area. Maybe disease was weakening the tribes that were there, and other stronger tribes like the Sioux tribe wanted control of that pipestone quarry. And so maybe they kind of pushed these people out. I heard that they were very peaceful people. And I can imagine that if a stronger tribe that maybe had horses, maybe had guns, came into the area, these people were like, yep, you can have it, we're moving on. And so they did. They moved to the south. The closest tribe we have is the Ponca and the Omaha, and they are down in Nebraska, kind of in the Sioux City, a little bit south of there, and by Niobrara. The Iowa tribe is down in Missouri, and the Oto tribe is as far down as in Oklahoma. So they followed that Missouri River down and found new places to settle. But we don't know for sure why they left. All these photos that I've shown you throughout the presentation are murals that are inside the visitor center, and I've just taken little snippets of it. But if you look here, this is a great picture. If you look to the right-hand side, you can see the Big Sioux River flowing there and those tall cliffs up above there. That's the South Dakota side. That's where we are, up above there. You're looking at the Iowa side, kind of a village site. You can see how there's a mound right in the middle of the village. They had mounds. They were either ceremonial, they were very special things, or they were burial mounds. And so they lived right among the ancestors, and it was part of their lives. Another big animal that you see here in the picture are dogs. One of the scavenger hunt questions I give all the field trips that come to visit me, I ask the kids, how many dogs are painted in the murals? I'm not going to tell you because I challenge you once we open back up, come and do this. Count all the dogs that we've painted. And you'll see just how important these animals are to the people, or were to the people. And then I ask the kids, okay, now how many horses are painted in the pictures? And I usually ask them this question when they're out of the exhibit, so they can't go back and do it. And they'll say, oh, there's 20 or there's 30. And then I'll get one kid that says there's 0. And there are 0 because the settlement predates horses. So the dogs were their beast of burden. Their dogs are the ones they use the travois with to help them move things or to do things. So dogs were extremely important to people. After the settlement had left in the 1800s, Europeans began to settle there. If you walk one of our original trails, there is a birth marker that is along the trail there, and it depicts the first, or marks the birth of the first white settler in the area. And then there were some archaeological digs in the 1800s. That's when the Pettigrew brothers came onto site and they mapped out the whole area. And then shortly after that was done, they dug up some artifacts, and then the farmers kind of settled in, and that's just part of the layers of the earth. In the 1980s, there was another big archaeological dig. It's also got some pictures that we have in the exhibit there, and where all the artifacts were found. A lot of those artifacts are housed in the Iowa University, but we've got some on loan in the visitor center there. In 1970, it became a National Historic Landmark. It's protected by the federal government, and so that's a good thing that happened there. There's talk of expanding that, but it doesn't ever get very far. So we'll see if that ever happens, but right now we've got about 400 acres that are protected on the Iowa and the South Dakota side. South Dakota State Parks acquired their first part of land in the 1990s. And then 2012, Buzz Nelson was selling some land, and so it was purchased, and that's where the visitor center sits, in that area there. And then some other land was swapped to connect the two pieces, and also to add in our road that you travel. It's a nice windy road that brings you into the park. In 2013, it became a state park. It was dedicated by the governor on both sides. We had the Iowa governor come over as well and visited, but it became a state park in that year. And then in 2017, our visitor center opened up for the public. So it's been the newest state park in over 40 years before that, and it's kind of a fun little birth. We have Custer State Park on one side, and they've got Good Earth on the other. So it's kind of a fun thing to do. So I'm gonna stop sharing there, and I'm gonna go back to where I can see everybody. And if anybody has any questions, you can, I don't know if you can unmute yourself, or if you want to just ask in the chat there, but open up for any questions anybody might have. I'm gonna get some tea.
When you were talking about the pipestone, you mentioned they made tablets. What did they do with the tablets? What's on the tablets?
Sure, I get that question from kids all the time, because when they think of a tablet, they give an iTablet, right? Well, it would be a big, nice square of pipestone usually, and they would tell stories on it. And so pipestone is very soft, and so you can carve and you can write on it. And the tablet that they have at the Center for Western Studies has, they call it a bird man, or a bird image, and then a bison. So they would use that to tell stories with. And then on the back side, there were all these cut marks. And so they think they used the back side to cut tobacco or other plants when they would smoke that. So they use the tablets to tell stories usually. Yeah, great question. Anybody else?
Any other questions for Jen? Oh, we have a question on the side here. Do you use burning to restore the prairie?
We did. When we first got the property, we did burn the prairie. And oh, do Jim and I wish we could burn it again. But with our visitor center there, and we have big, beautiful homes on both the north and the south side of the park, we are not looking to burn, but we are looking at other ways to keep the prairie healthy. We're going to do some mowing and some haying and some grazing. So we're going to do those kinds of things to keep the prairie healthy. But oh, we wish we could burn it. Burning it I would be so happy, and it would be just thriving after that. But because of our proximity to those homes and the visitor center, we don't currently burn. Great questions.
Monica has a question. No, okay.
I think this is great. Yeah, we're hoping to open the visitor center back up on June 1st. We're getting guidance on all of that. Our programming this summer is going to look way different. We're going to do a lot of Zooming. So you can watch for that. If you follow us on Facebook, we'll have our new programming up there, and then also on the website. We're hoping to we have what we call our FISH program, which is our friendly interactive senior hour. We do that once a month, and we're hoping to do that via Zoom like this, where people can log in and listen and watch and watch our presentations this way. So yeah, yeah, it'll be fun. The park is currently open though. If you get some time and you want to come out, the trails are open. You can walk them and visit. This weekend is our open house weekend, so no park entrance license is required. And then it's a Monday again, that'll be required again. But yeah, the park is still open, and people have been out there on warm, sunny days. We have lots of people. So but they're doing a great job of social distancing and being safe. So, yeah.
Jen, does your park require a photographer's permit?
Like professional photographers?
Mm-hmm.
I believe Game Fish and Parks does require those, but we don't necessarily, if you've got a park entrance license and you're out taking pictures, that's kind of okay. Just go do that, have a great time. If you're going to do it and you're going to start selling photos, that's when you probably do need to look at that permit. If you're doing them, if you take a family out to take photos, we're just looking for a park entrance license more than anything. But yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And how much are park entrance licenses right now?
Great question. So if you're coming out for the day, it's $8. And if you would like to get an annual pass, they're $36 for the first one, and you can get a second one for half price at $18. So you can get 2 of them for $54. And it'll be good until May of next year.
Good. What's the art on the park sticker this year?
It is an
that
owl.
was always a big deal. An
Yeah,
owl?
yeah, it's an owl, because this year we're kind of doing like a whole nighttime nocturnal theme. So we've got some new t-shirts that are like, I need some space, and it's got a camper with stars on it. So it's kind of cool. So we're doing kind of all like a nighttime different things you can do.
Good. Any other questions out there? All right. Oh, let's see. One more question. Did you use, I think I already read that. It was about burning. So I think we're good. Jen, thank you so much.
You are so
Thank
welcome.
you.
Your time and your talents and all you're doing. Yes.
Thank you. Thank
We
you.
appreciate all you're doing, especially right now during the COVID crisis, to keep the park going. You're amazing. Thank you for your time. And please, people, feel free to grab a state park entrance sticker and go visit Jen when you can, or wear a mask.
Yeah.
Hike on the trails. They're beautiful. And the building is great too. So thank you, Jen. We appreciate your time. And thank you, everyone. Thanks, Olli, for coming.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.